Hello and welcome to News in Depth here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skaya. In a recent interview, Polish President Karol Nawrocki said Poland should start work on developing its own nuclear capability to counter what he described as Russia's growing aggression. Now, the remarks have sparked debate as Poland is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, meaning any move to acquire or develop nuclear weapons could put Warsaw at odds with the one on the cornerstone agreement of global security. TVP World's political editor Stuart Dowell joins me in studio. Stuart, welcome to this episode of News in Depth.
Hi.
So naturally, Stuart, my first question to you is first and foremost, can Poland develop its own nuclear weapons, or did President Karol Nawrocki have something else in mind?
Well, it's not clear from what President Nawrocki said exactly what he had on his mind. We can take it in different ways. Maybe he was very general in his comments, and his comments could be taken as being in favour of some kind of nuclear sharing deal with the United States. That was mentioned by former President Andrzej Duda last year, 2 years ago, 2024. He could be referring to being under the French nuclear umbrella, which is another option that's been discussed at the moment. It could even be developing Poland's independent nuclear weapon. It's worth underlining that Karol Nawrocki's comments are just ideas. Karol Nawrocki doesn't form policy and doesn't control budgets, but his presidency gives him a lot of legitimacy, and Poland having its own independent nuclear bomb is very popular in opinion polls.
But sort of why, I mean, you did write an analytical piece for our portal, which our viewers can find on tvpworld.com. But let me ask you this. So why is the nuclear question resurfacing in Poland right now? And you did mention France, but I'll get back to that a little later.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for Poland and other countries in the region to be thinking about this. It makes the solutions are less obvious, but it's obvious to talk about it. And as you mentioned in your introduction, Russian aggression in Ukraine is probably the biggest factor, and also as part of the war, Russia has positioned some of its nuclear arsenal in Belarus, specifically to threaten Ukraine's allies in Europe, including Poland. And also we've seen in the last year that the American security guarantee is...
That's exactly my next question to you. That could it have been because of this question mark over U.S. security guarantees?
I think so, yes. It's unusual to hear Karol Nawrocki making... he didn't comment exactly on the American security guarantee, but his comments can taken into
right?
that context, yeah. Karol Nawrocki is a staunch Atlanticist. His policy, as well as Law and Justice, is that the best security policy for Poland is to be under the American security guarantee. But any observer, and I'm sure that they see this inside the party as well, is that America's security guarantee isn't as strong as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it's become more transactional in order to benefit from America's security guarantee. American officials have said that allies should be ideologically aligned, and that will give them access to better trade deals and American weapons. But they stop short in those comments of saying protection under the nuclear umbrella. So any president or politician in this part of the world should be aware of that. But then there's a problem about what to do next.
You did say allies. I'm going to invite you to listen to a soundbite by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz for a moment.
A true ally takes his obligations seriously. No one forced us into the excessive dependence on the United States that we have found ourselves in recently. This immaturity was our own fault, but we are now leaving this situation behind us, and sooner rather than later. We are not doing this by writing off NATO. We are doing it by establishing a strong, self-sustaining European pillar within the alliance in our own interests. In Article 42 of the Treaty on the European Union, we commit ourselves to assist each other in the event of an armed attack in Europe. We must spell out how we want to organise this at European level, not as a substitute for NATO, but as a self-sustaining, strong pillar within the alliance. I have begun initial discussions with French President Emmanuel Macron on European nuclear deterrence. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be clear. We are complying with our legal obligations.
Stuart, I see you nodding your head, shaking your head. Does that mean you are agreeing with what you just heard the German Chancellor say? We need to be a strong pillar. What do you think?
Well, he referenced the possibility that Germany is in talks with France about coming under the French nuclear umbrella, which I think is the most interesting part of his comments. And France, President Macron recently said that in the near future, France, he's going to talk about the future of the French nuclear doctrine. So we'll learn more about exactly what France is offering. In the past year, we've heard different comments that possibly France will extend its nuclear umbrella. And even Donald Tusk referred to this positively when Poland signed a military agreement with France back in the autumn of last year. But in my view, it's not an ideal solution for Poland or anyone else. We have to remember that the reason why France has its own nuclear weapons is because it didn't believe back decades ago that the American security nuclear umbrella was credible. It didn't believe that America would risk its own cities to protect Paris in a general nuclear exchange.
You did just say nuclear umbrella, but how credible do you think that NATO's nuclear umbrella is today from Warsaw's perspective, Stuart?
Well, not as much as it was before because of America's, in the America First foreign policy doctrine. The allies have to be ideologically aligned. At the moment, Poland isn't. The government isn't ideologically aligned with Trump and America First. It might be in the future, but then that might change again. It's no way to conduct security policy. But as well, just going back to the French case, the idea that France didn't believe that the American nuclear umbrella was credible for itself. It developed its own nuclear weapons and gained its strategic autonomy. So therefore, the very idea that now France's nuclear umbrella can be a relevant, a strong nuclear deterrent for other countries also suffers from the same argument.
You are mentioning France quite a lot on that note. Let's listen to exactly what French President Emmanuel Macron said.
Europe has to learn to become a geopolitical power. It was not part of our DNA. We conceived ourselves as a political construction to provide peace. We delivered. Second, a single market to provide growth and prosperity. We delivered. Now we have to reform it in this new order. In this new geopolitical environment, Europe has to become a geopolitical power. It's ongoing, but we have to accelerate and clearly to deliver all the components of a geopolitical power. In defense, in technology, and in the de-risking vis-à-vis all the big powers in order to be much more independent. If we want to be taken seriously on the European continent and beyond, we must show the world our unwavering commitment to defend our own interests. It starts, of course, with continuing to extend our support to Ukraine, but it could nicely follow with fending off unjustified tariffs and politely declining unjustified claims on European territory.
This is Macron speaking at the Munich Security Conference. Stuart, what do you make of it?
Well, it makes sense for France to wish to extend its nuclear umbrella to its European allies. It gets it improves its position vis-à-vis its principal rival, competitor in Europe, Germany. Germany is going to spend 108 billion euros on its defence next year, I believe, or this year, and many hundreds of billions of euros up to 2030. It will be the largest defence spender, and as the American security guarantee slowly withdraws, there's an uncomfortable spectre that European countries might start to compete with each other in terms of defence spending, rearmament, and France will be aware of that, and so it gains benefits from having allies in this part of Europe under its nuclear umbrella.
Let me ask you this. If France and the UK have far fewer warheads than Russia, can a European deterrent truly be credible?
Well, you're right. UK and France together have around 500 warheads, and America has about 4,500, and Russia a bit more, but similar, several thousand. So it's difficult for Europe to really, but that number is definitely enough to cause a lot of damage in Russia. For Poland, for a country like Poland, getting its own nuclear warheads would be a very challenging task.
In what way? What are some of the consequences, perhaps, that could occur?
Well, firstly, it would need to withdraw from the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. That's the first thing. Even if it did that, it would possibly create a diplomatic backlash amongst its allies. Nowadays, it's not possible to conduct a nuclear program in secrecy. In terms of industrial capacity, Poland, we have to remember that nuclear weapons are an old technology now, and it's quite feasible for a modern industrial country like Poland to develop its own warheads. The timescale, people give different estimates. Anything from a year, I think that's too quick. Up to several years. Some people say up to 10 years. Another element that would hold Poland back is it doesn't have any nuclear capabilities in terms of energy and civilian use at the moment, but that's changing because it's contracted to develop nuclear power stations from America.
We can go again deeper into this topic, but I want to shift gears now. Stuart, the Hungarian general election campaign is getting underway, and Marco Rubio paid a visit to Budapest, where he met with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Let's listen in.
The president has an extraordinarily close relationship to the prime minister. He does, and it has had tangible benefits in our relationship. I'm not going to speculate about the future. What happens in this country is up to the voters of this country to determine and decide, and we love the people of Hungary. But there's no reason to sugarcoat it. I'm going to be very blunt with you. The prime minister and the president have a very, very close personal relationship and working relationship, and I think it has been incredibly beneficial to the relationship between our two countries.
Sometimes I lose, sometimes I win. So don't afraid what will be if we are not winning, because it's regularly happened here, at least 4 times already. So there is no need to be afraid what will happen in Hungary. The Hungarian democracy is very strong. And the government of this country is very strongly believe on democracy and competitiveness and competition in politics as well, as we have done in the last 35 years. So our record is very strong on the governmental side and on opposition side as well. So government will be created after the election in Hungary based on the intention of the Hungarian people, and Hungary as a country will remain strong anyway.
Stuart, did Marco Rubio so confidently, at least in my opinion, make it clear that Washington wants Orban to win these elections?
Yeah, he said exactly that, and that should come as no surprise to anyone who observes these things. I think what was interesting for me was that after Munich, Marco Rubio decided to visit those two countries, Hungary and Slovakia, and that's no coincidence.
It's no coincidence, you say?
I mean, it's no. So it should be no surprise that he wanted to visit those two leaders. At his speech in Munich, many people were very pleased with, many European politicians and observers were very pleased with what they heard. They interpreted his words as extending an olive branch.
But in the middle of an election campaign?
Yes, that's another thing about interference in elections. But the point that I wanted to make was that Marco Rubio talked about shared European values and working together, and that we're still an alliance, and that Europe's very important. Yet the first countries that he chose to visit were the illiberal ones, the ones that are capturing the state, the ones that are limiting the independent work of prosecutors and courts and capturing the media. And in Hungary particularly, you mentioned the elections, which international observers described the last elections as free but not fair. We can probably expect something similar in the next election, and so no surprises.
Can you just tell us a little bit before I let you go, in about a minute, in under a minute, what are the predictions telling us about who's leading the polls in Hungary?
Well, the opposition candidate, Peter Magyar, is leading by around 11%, according to independent polls. Orban and Fidesz have their own polls. But I would say it's touch and go. The electoral system has been manipulated by Fidesz to benefit Fidesz party. So even Magyar and Tisza need at least 5% plus to be secure of victory. A 1-2% victory in the polls probably won't do it for them. And then even if they win, the state is so captured that the question is, could Magyar and Tisza effectively govern?
And do you think that if Fidesz is trailing, does the US backing actually help Orban domestically?
Probably less so than it would have done a year ago because of Trump's actions and questions of sovereignty. It's easy for Magyar to bring up the question of sovereignty when Orban's ally was attacking Denmark's sovereignty just recently. I think that for Hungarian voters, domestic issues are more important. Hungary is the poorest country in the EU based on spending power. Hungarians are disappointed with corruption, the cost of living, the management of schools and hospitals and other public services. These things will probably focus their minds.
And we have yet to see how these elections will unfold in April. Stuart Dowell, thank you so much for being our guest here on News in Depth.
Thank you.
And that's all for this episode of News in Depth here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.